Office of Equal Opportunity and Civil Rights. For those of you attending virtually through WebEx or YouTube, if you wished credit for your participation, please send an email eotraining@cms.hhs.gov with the course title in the subject line. And that email box was eotraining@cms.hhs.gov. If you have questions during the workshop, please feel free to enter your questions or comments in the chat through WebEx. Or if you have a question that you'd like to ask the presenter, please press *6 on your telephone keypad to unmute your line. Otherwise, we request that all virtual attendees please keep your telephone lines muted during the presentation. And at this time, I will turn it over to Malia Jensen, the chairperson of the DERG, to introduce our guest speaker.
Thank you, Deanna, and thank you everyone for coming this afternoon. I'm excited that we had so many people register, and I'm really excited about our guest speaker. And so without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Catherine Trotman.
All right, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Catherine Trotman, and I'm the author of the book called The Federal Resume Guidebook. I'm very proud to say that it's our 7th edition, and it only came out 4 weeks ago. So it's only my 4th time to teach with the book. So I really love teaching with the new book. A lot of new samples in there and new federal resume stories that I'll be talking about today. We've got 90 minutes to talk about the best possible federal resume that you could write, as well as I'm going to cover Schedule A hiring processes a little bit toward the end of the presentation. So I'm really glad to be here, and what I'm going to do is have the book PDF on the screen and go through pieces of the book that I think you should look at when you get your copy of the book. So here we go. I wrote the first book in 1996. That was a long time ago, but I wrote it when USA Jobs and the government decided to accept a resume instead of the 171 form.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I was the very first person to ever write the Federal Resume book, and I actually created the Federal Resume. They call me the Federal Resume Guru. So that book, in 96, I mortgaged my house and published it myself, and it turned out to be a good idea because I'm still here. I'm still teaching it. So the book has 4 parts to it, and what we're going to cover today is the first part, and it is on federal resume writing, and I have on the screen the flyer that got emailed to you, and these are the 9 strategies to write a federal resume. So the first one is going to be showing you what the outline format looks like and how it's different than other resume formats. The second strategy is how many hats do you wear at work? And that's the beginning of writing the federal resume as a hat lesson. Strategy 3 is going to be how to find keywords and vacancy announcements to match your resume so that you can get best qualified, hopefully. Number 4 is tell your accomplishment stories. So I'm going to recommend that you add accomplishments to your resume so that your resume will stand out and look a little bit different than everybody else. Strategy 5 is add core competencies that you might have to your resume. Strategy 6 is writing the work experience section. 7 is to edit it carefully. We want you to use active voice instead of passive voice. And then we're going to talk about strategy 4, formatting and design. And strategy 9 is to submit the resume and cope with the questionnaire that's part of the application. So that's a lot of content we have here. Let me put the book up on the screen now. Here we go. So there's the book. Now we're going to cover in my presentation only part 1. So when you get the book and you get through part 1, you want to keep going. Keep going. Part 2, 3, and 4. But for us for today, hour and 15 minutes, only have time for the Federal Resume Guidebook. Now I'm going to put up the table of contents on the screen here. There are a total of 17 resume samples in the book altogether. And there are 20 sets of keyword listings that you can find. And there are 20 accomplishment stories. So the book has a huge amount of content to help you write your federal resume. And I'm going to go down here to page 13. and look at a sneak preview of the resume here. And I'm going to describe it for you as well as show it to you. So I call this resume the outline format. It's not a bullet format. It's not a big block format. It's not a functional resume. It's called the outline format. And here it is on the screen. You can see why I'm calling it the outline format, because I have small paragraphs and I have some keywords. And the keywords here are pay administration, problem solving, education and training administration, and then I have the words key accomplishments typed out, separate. This is very important for you to know that you must separate your duties from your accomplishments, because the HR people won't see the accomplishments if they're blended into a block of words or if they're blended into a long list of accomplishments, a bullet list. So this is a big deal right here. This page is 13 when you get the book. Got a little echo. Hang on. Okay, is it better now? Can you still hear me? Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, I guess it's better. We'll keep going. Okay, so this is the outline format, page 13 in the book. Very first sample, but like I said, there's 17 samples altogether in the book. What to include in your federal resume. So, you know, a lot of people send a private sector resume for federal job search. They'll send a 2-page private sector resume instead of a real federal resume. And they might not include all of this, because it says you have to include your job title, your duties and accomplishments, your street address for your employer, your supervisor name and address and zip code. So if you were to use the resume builder in the builder in USA Jobs, it would prompt you through all of that. But when you go to USA Jobs Live, it says right there, you can either upload or use the builder. And a lot of people want to just upload, so they never see the builder. And they don't know that hours per week and street address and zip code is required. So I'm just saying this is what you need to put in the resume. If you submit a resume to federal without hours per week and month and year, you're done right there. I know, because the HR person can't find the 1-year specialized experience in this work. So that's something that a lot of people miss. Okay, going on. I have some wonderful before and after resumes in the book. There's 2 samples that are no good and then 1 sample that is good in the book. So we'll look at the first one named Jen. Now this is her before resume. She's a military spouse in Naples. Her husband retired from the military there, and she wanted to stay working in the housing department in Naples. The first page here, page 16, resume is bad. This is a block of words, just a big block of words. I'm on page 16 in the book. Big block of words, very hard to read, nothing impressive about it. And then the next page, 17, here's the same resume in a bullet format that's also not good, because it's just a laundry list of words and it's not long enough. It doesn't describe things very well. So page 17 is also no good. Page 18 is a really good format called the outline format. And Jenny did get hired there at the Naples Housing Office. She got a promotion at GS9, and her husband got to stay there in Naples and live happily ever after. So, and this is her resume that she used. So look at this. The first part of it has italic words that says, the Housing Department Fleet and Family Readiness Programs is responsible for policy development, resourcing, and oversight of quality of life programs for sailors and families. We have a little description of the housing office there in Naples. So for all of you working at CMS, I would want to see a small paragraph in the very beginning of your resume that describes the department and the mission of your CMS office and program. Because CMS is huge. Okay, we all know what CMS does. But whatever your office is, like the EEO office, it represents people with disabilities and advocates for them and creates programs and policies to improve quality of life and improvement for performance at the work, you know, all that. So you would write that in the resume. So this is something that's new in this book. If you have the last edition of book, This was not in the 6th edition. This is new. This is because managers and HR people want to know what you're doing. What is your mission? And what's your objective in your job? And who are your customers? So then after that, we have ensure quality of life for service members serving 5,000 residents there in Naples. The next paragraph starts out, housing program expertise. All caps, those words. So the HR person, when they look, they see right away that she's got housing program expertise in all caps. You don't have to read these resumes. These resumes with the all cap words pop. So the HR person sees. And these are the same words that the HR person created in the announcement. So, I mean, how good can it get? Yeah, I know. It matches. Okay, the next heading, and then she has a bullet afterwards, and she said she conduct complex housing-related studies to evaluate the impact of changes in regulatory and legislative requirements, study structure of housing operation to improve processes and maximize mission accomplishment, prepared a case study analysis for renovations for more than 1,000 family units in 2 years. Wow, that's a lot of work. They've got a lot of housing units there. So you see that accomplishment right there, right in the middle of the block, but it's got a bullet, it's indented, it's easy to read. So if you have a project that you worked on, a study, you collected data, or you improved efficiency, or you learned a new software system, you could feature it by indenting it, put a bullet next to it, or you can put it at the end under key accomplishments. This is one of the things I teach in my federal resume classes everywhere, is separating the duties from the accomplishments. Most of the resumes that come to me, I'm a resume coach, I look at resumes all the time for people, is I don't see any separation. Oh, in fact, I don't even see any accomplishments, okay? When you leave the class and you go home and look at your resume, I want you to look, first of all, at your current job block, and I want you to underline any accomplishments that's in your resume right now that are accomplishments. Now, you may not find any because you didn't have a class before, but you know, if you want to get referred to a supervisor, you have to have some accomplishments in the resume, that you did some special project or worked on something that was above and beyond overall duties. If you write your federal resume based on just your PD and the duties, you might not stand out to get referred. So that's why it's so important. Okay, the next heading for her, we have personnel and workforce management is another key word. And she created personnel actions. And then look, she even created 2 new positions. So one showing and one referral created the position. So that was an accomplishment for workforce. And then she did marketing for the housing program. She edited the Facebook page that gets 700 views a day. That's a lot for a housing office. And answered messages. So it's a very interesting resume. It's not boring. That's another goal, by the way, is to make your resume interesting, you know, by writing about your customers or problems you may have solved, projects you were on, new systems you might have helped to learn or help other people with, is that likability factor for your resume. Okay, so now I have 2 more before and afters. Now here's another one. Oh, this is a FEMA story, insurance specialist. So his name is Milton, and here's his before resume. He worked at Geico, and while he was working at Geico, he did a lot of hurricane emergency management claims. And since he did so many claims for, you know, emergencies, he thought, oh, I like to work for FEMA, and I could do disaster claims all day long, and that would be really interesting. So this is his resume to apply for a claims job at FEMA. So here's his first resume, which is very boring, and it doesn't even have the word disaster in it. Not good. If he does disaster work, he better put that in there if he wants to get hired. Okay, then this is also a bad version. Just a bunch of bullets. So generic, it's so bad. Just as boring as heck. You would not get referred, probably not best qualified, just bad. Okay, here's a good resume now. This is on page 21. 21, the good one. So dedicated insurance agent, 18 years experience. We have a little profile at the top of the resume, which you can add a small one. Underwriting and claims consistent with high customer satisfaction. So here we go. Now we did put a description in there of Geico, even though everybody knows what Geico is. Largest auto insurer in the U.S., provides coverage 24 million people and all that. As an insurance claim supervisor, I oversee 10-member team of adjusters. And then we go into outline format. And the all-cap keywords match the announcement, which were front-end supervision and training, commercial claims processing, flood insurance, and then we have key accomplishments. So this one looks a little bit different than Jenny's. Jenny's resume had the skill paragraph and then an accomplishment, and then a skill paragraph and then an accomplishment. This one is all duties with the outline format, then the words key accomplishment and 2 accomplishments. You can do it either way. The main thing is to separate the duties from the accomplishments and make the accomplishments stand out. I interviewed this guy, and I love to hear claim stories. I just think they're so interesting, what they do and how they help people. He paid out $1.2 million in claims. One of the claims was for a claimant who sustained damage because they drove off the road and hit the brick mailbox and ran the vehicle into their house. Oh, brother. And he replaced the brick mailbox. He got estimates for the house and the stucco, and it was $18,000 in damages. This guy was hired by FEMA because he told real stories. He was very specific about his claims work. And even though it sounds kind of funny to say, I replaced the brick mailbox and the concrete block repair, it's detailed. This is what FEMA wants. They want to see. At CMS, accomplishments could have to do with helping one of your Medicare beneficiaries get covered for a program, a Medicare program, or help them figure out, what positions to see, whatever problems you might have. You need to highlight those stories. And I mean, be specific. Don't just say, I communicate with 20 beneficiaries a week. Boring. So you would say, including one that called me to tell a story about somebody that called, was having a really big problem that you might have helped them with. So, I mean, I don't know if you work directly with beneficiaries, you might not, doesn't matter. But whatever your accomplishments and challenges and problems are, that's what needs to go into the resume if you want to get best qualified and referred to a supervisor to stand out. Okay, one more before and after. This is James. He's a policeman in Howard County, a detective, sorry. And this is his before resume, just a bunch of words again. I call these big paragraphs a big block resume. I'm looking at page 22, because it's just a big block of words. There's some good stuff in there, but, just a lot of words. Okay, then this next one is also a before, not good. He has a summary, but then he just has short bullets. Law enforcement people write terrible resumes. They can't write full sentences. They're just really dull. Yes, sir?
I'm law enforcement.
Oh, you are? Oh, okay,
Fire
good.
alarm.
Well, welcome to the world. Well, this is really short and really, it's just generic. So, okay, let's take a look at the real world here. Page 24. This is it, James. So he put in his introduction, Special Investigative Division, serious criminal cases. And then we have investigative coordination with federal stakeholders. Coordinate high-value investigations and conducted joint operations for similar units and other jurisdictions. And then his accomplishment is, in April 2017, I was deployed to Baltimore, Maryland for the Baltimore City riots. In this role, I coordinated with federal, state, and local law enforcement to conduct critical security programs in an exigent and fluid set of circumstances. And it was fluid, right? We remember that? Really fluid. I was instrumental in overseeing the deployment of less lethal munitions that resulted in the protection and preservation of numerous lives and property. I think that means less guns and more something else, probably. It was a bad situation. Yeah, except for that one guy. We shot him in the car. Okay, next heading, we have law enforcement operations. And then after that, he has a dash, and then he talks about his instructor work with the SWAT program. So he highlighted the SWAT training underneath law enforcement operations. Then we have special investigations, a fugitive unit. And I only have one page here, but he probably had a story of a fugitive that he chased around and hopefully caught. Oh, he apprehended 185 fugitives annually. Ooh, that's a lot. He's a busy guy. So these resumes are, he got hired, FBI Blatchy instructor, law enforcement instructor. Yeah. So these resumes are outline format, all cap keywords that you would find in the announcement. The paragraphs are small, they're like 6, 8 lines long. Every single job block has accomplishments separated by the skills or in a separate section under key accomplishments. So I want to take a minute and ask anybody who would like to speak here in the room. We've got about 10 people in the room. For you, tell me, what's the hardest part of writing a really competitive, good federal resume? What's the hardest part for you?
Well, I think it's just interesting. I've never heard people tell stories before.
Oh my gosh, really?
I didn't know it was allowed. Never really.
Oh my gosh, that's great. It is totally allowed, and it is impressive and interesting. And the HR people, so when you put your resume into USA Jobs, you fill out the questionnaire, and you hopefully get the questionnaire as high score as you can. So anybody over a score of 90, HR person will look at your resume. And the HR person is the one that decides who is referred to a supervisor. So the HR person has to read 100 or 200 resumes and decide who is referred. It's up to them to decide. If your resume is interesting and you show that you've done some challenging things here at CMS, analyzing new laws or regulations or interpreting or problem solving, they'll say, oh, this person looks really good. I want to refer this person. Supervisor might want to meet this person. That's how you do it.
So how do you make budget interesting?
Oh, budget. I love budget. I love budget stories. You got budget problems. You've got budget shortfalls. You have to find money from here, move it to there. You do presentations on budget. You talk to managers about budget and their wish list. You go find the money for them. You present it. You do justifications of budget. You must have a budget story. Has this year been really challenging for the budget?
Not so bad so far.
Well, so far though, tell me one challenge with the budget, just one.
Just the new process for requesting additional funds.
Oh, really? There's a new process?
Well, from
Yeah.
before.
Okay. Have you had to train some people on the new process for requesting additional funds?
Correct.
Have you
Everybody.
had to train the managers and the people who want to request additional funds?
Always.
Has that been challenging to train them on this new process?
Always.
That's a story. You make that a key accomplishment. How many managers have you trained so far?
All of them.
How many? Guess. I gotta have a number.
At least 10, 15.
Okay, 10 to 50. Do they all work right here, or are they all in all regions outside?
Right here.
Okay, but you communicate with anybody in any other regions or not? Just right here. So these 15 managers are managers of important programs, right? They're all program managers, right?
Correct.
Right. So they're very significant programs, and they're always asking for additional funds, right? Why did they set up a new format for this? Just to make it more consistent and more...
I'm not sure why they changed them. I'm trying to change their ways. Before
Well,
they said,
It's probably going to be better. It's probably going to be more consistent in terms of their requesting additional funds, and they probably have to justify it in a more consistent way and provide documentation for their requests, right? Wouldn't that be true?
correct.
Yeah, because usually in the past it might have just been hodgepodge. Everybody requested in their own way, and you can't create a great report when everybody asks for stuff in different ways. So that's an accomplishment right
Gotta
there.
be fair, too.
Yeah. And what about you, sir? What are you working on that's challenging this year?
Oh, well, provider terminations. We do on-site visits to the state to discuss how they, whether or not they're in compliance with the regulations.
And when you say you visit they, who are you visiting?
States,
States what? Hospitals,
state,
clinics?
No, I'm sorry, the state offices.
State
the
offices?
Medicaid offices.
Medicaid
Yes.
offices, state Medicaid offices you
Yes.
visit, and you ensure that they're compliant with
Yes, we.
CMS laws and regulations. And you started out by saying you do terminations. What is that?
Okay, provider terminations. Provider terminations are where you sit down and you do a desk review, and you do an aggregate of the total amount of providers in that state.
Yeah.
So
right.
if you
do a
have,
study.
so if you have 70,000 providers and you want to determine who was terminated from that state or another state, and you want to make sure that they are not in the program and getting paid. You want to ensure
Make
that
sure termination is really a termination.
Yes, that is
Yeah,
correct.
because people slide through.
Yes.
And so in one particular state, you probably went to where you saw there were a lot of terminations where people are still being paid. And you had to really do some corrections and some lessons to the state employees about how to really make those terminations permanent. So you probably have a story.
Yeah.
Yeah, you probably do. You could tell the story. You could say, for instance, and I visited, Orange County in California, I saw redundancy of more than 10% of the total recipients for Medicaid. I don't know, tell a story. That's what you do. That's what you do, is you tell a story about something that you did in your work that stands out. It's memorable. It shows you know the laws and regulations, the policies and procedures, and you're communicating to the state offices and doing an expert audit, saving the money for the American taxpayer. It's all good. That's what you do. Okay, so are you all sold on adding accomplishments to your resume now? Say yes.
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 All right. I got to make sure. Okay, now this is another resume here on page 25 that's really bad. This one is a functional resume, and it's just terrible. Don't do this. Functional resumes used to be popular, and they're terrible for government because the government HR people and managers need to see the duties and responsibilities anchored to dates. The functional resume is where you pull out the skills and you make a big list of your skills. No dates. Terrible resume. You will just be out with this resume. So don't do a functional resume for government. Okay, here we go. So,
Question.
yeah.
So you're saying no dates. How long, if you put a date, how long is it good for? So say 2018, I had this great accomplishment, but I haven't had that same thing since then, or nothing that could top that.
2018 is good. That's only a couple years ago.
Okay, but what's the longest or the furthest back we could?
Oh, you should emphasize the last 10 years of your resume. And the last 5 years is the most important part of the resume. So your accomplishments within the last 5 years are the hottest. And then 5 to 10 years is next hottest, and after that, maybe not. Because they're really looking at the last 5 years of your resume at the highest level. So if you're a GS11 now and you're applying for a 12, they're going to be looking at your GS11 job to see if you have the 1 year specialized experience for the 12. They may not look very hard at the 9 or the 7 or the 5 because it's not relevant. They're going to look at the highest level, GS level you have on your resume to see if it matches their target announcement. So when you write, I'll tell you this right now, average length for a federal resume is 5 pages. So your current job should be maybe a full page long, and your second job back could be a page or a half a page, and your third job back would be shorter, and your fourth job back could be shorter even then. So, 5 pages or less is what we recommend. Now, CMS doesn't say on their announcements that you have to limit your resume to 5 pages, but I just recommend 5. If you were to apply for a senior executive service in government, SES, that is a limit of 5 pages for SES. So I figure if an SESer has to do 5 pages, so do you. You could be less if you want. You could be 3 or 4 pages, but I don't want to see a 14-page resume go to HR. They don't like it. They don't want to see it. It's too long. Okay. Now, how many hats do you wear at work? This is an exercise that I do when I teach all-day classes. The hats that I wear in my job are I'm an instructor, an author, a webmaster, a business manager, and I'm a federal career coach. I wear 5 hats in my job every day. And those hats could become my outline format resume. I could type those words, those exact words that I just spoke, and put them right in the resume. So let me ask you, sir, what hats do you wear in your current job? Tell me 5 hats.
I'm a business analyst.
Business analyst?
Yeah, I work on websites.
Okay.
I'm a core.
What is that? A qual? Core. Okay, core.
Project manager
Project manager.
and business owner.
What was the last one?
Business owner representatives.
Oh, okay. And you could also add another hat, customer services. Because it sounds like you talk to a lot of customers with all those different things you just said. Now, those words which you just spoke, You could type, when you get back to your office to a computer, you could type those words, and that could be the basis of your job. But then, of course, you would look at the announcement and change it a little bit. But I'm sure analysts, website updates, customer services, project management would work for any job that you want to go for next, probably. So that's how many hats you wear at work. And that's on page 31 in the book. You can look at it later. And I have some samples in the book on 32 of some hats that people have in their jobs. So this is how we're building the outline format resume. I came up with this outline format resume idea in 2000 when DOD had a resume format called Resumix. And it was an online keyword system, and everybody would write a 5,000 character job block. Can you imagine how horrible that was? Because they wanted to pack the words into the builder, and they even did invisible words and crazy stuff to get pulled up. But I never did like a 5,000 character job block because I can't read it. I will not read it. Managers didn't want to see that. So I said, let's just break it up. Let's break up the 5,000 characters into little paragraphs that are 8 sentences long with a full return between each one. And that full return was one character. So they didn't have to be so crazy with their 5,000 characters. They could put in a full return and make it readable. So that's the old days. Now HR is reading resumes with their eyes. They sit in chairs and read them. It's a really awful job. So we want to make their resumes easier to read, to find the skills, and to see the accomplishments and demonstrate your past performance and shows your knowledge, skills, and abilities. My goal, number one, get you best qualified, but number two is to make it easy for HR to find that you have the experience. So everything I'm saying here, HR knows about. They come to my classes, they listen to me, they see the formats, and they always like it because it makes their job easier. And that's what we want to do, is make their job easier.
Can you copy and paste from the announcement?
Can what?
Can you copy and paste?
Yeah, you can, but
From
you
the
only want to
announcement.
copy like 5 words. You
Into
don't
your
want to
resume.
copy and paste like 6 paragraphs, 6 sentences or anything. No, just, I'll show you. I'll show you. So anyway, here's more hats. You can look at these later. Okay, then the next step, the next strategy is use keywords to match the announcement. Here we are. Now I'm going to show you how to find the keywords. Hold on, I'll tell you what page I'm on. Wait a minute. Oh, wait, right there. Page 36. The paragraph you really have to look at is called specialized experience. This is where the announcement says, you must show that you have 1 year specialized experience at the next lower grade level in 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's a little paragraph, it's only like 8 lines long, and they tell you exactly what they want in the announcement. And what you have to do is take that one golden paragraph that starts out with specialized experience, you take those words and you turn some of them into the headings for the paragraphs, and there's a match. There's a match. And then, of course, you add your key accomplishments to prove it. You're not just stating you do it. You're proving it with your accomplishments. Okay, let me show you one. Here's one. I'll tell you what page. Hold on. Okay, here's one for an emergency management specialist, page 38. Now, there's the duties. Now, a lot of people think you have to match all the words from the duties section. Nope. That's not what's required. That's just what you're going to do if you get hired. So skip on past it. Here we go. Gone. I gave you the keywords anyway, but here we go. Oh, there we go. This is my favorite paragraph. Qualifications required, in all caps. In order to qualify, you must meet the education and/or experience described below. Your resume must be clear with relevant experience. And then it says, specialized experience is defined as. Now, most people do not know that this is the paragraph you have to match. And I mean you have to. It's mandatory. If you want to get best qualified, you match it, you show it in your resume, you show you've got 1 year at the next lower grade level. This is how you get best qualified, right here. Now, if it requires education, of course, you got to have the education, the degree, classroom hours, whatever they ask for, if it's mandatory. But if you want to apply to both, but with both education and experience, this paragraph here is the pot of gold.
Which paragraph is that?
Specialized experience, it's under the requirements section. But then there's a little more, lots of times. You never know. The announcements might include something else. That what I was just reading that second ago was on page 39. You could bookmark that page, turn it like half. You never want to forget that page, 39. There's the key words right there on the right, in all caps. State and local non-governmental partners, evacuation plans and strategies, analysis of data, interpretation of complex policy, and creating instructions for evacuations. That's what HR wants to see. If you don't have that word evacuations in there, you're done. It's right there. When I look at resumes all day long, I have the most fun. People will send me these great announcements, and then words won't be in there. Like this guy I was talking to yesterday, coached him. He applied to 186 jobs, all budget analysts, okay? And so just for fun, I looked at his resume to see if I could find the word budget. Guess what? It wasn't in there.
Oh my God.
I could seriously not believe it. He let me go over username and password. I said, well, it's probably not going to work. Trying to be nice. But I said, you have got a lot of analyst experience. Let's look at program analysts. We don't need to do that. I'm so glad I saw his account. This would have been very bad for him to continue this, really discouraging. So I found a couple program analyst jobs that he had analysis and studies and risk and quality and different things. He had them all. I said, don't apply. So I did a save search for him with that phrase in it. My save search was competitive, because he's current fit. Competitive, policy analyst, GS9, DC. Boom. You should have seen his searches he set up. They were ridiculous. They were no good. He would have never got anything decent because his search was off. So I set the search up for him. I said, now you're going to. There were 23 jobs, program analyst, GS9 in DC yesterday, competitive, that he could apply for. So we're going to work, we're helping him. We're going to do a program analyst resume. Don't think about budget anymore. So you find these words in this announcement. Okay, now there's something else. So some announcements might have knowledge, skills, and abilities in it. Not all of them. I can't tell you who does, who doesn't. Just scroll down to the announcement under this section called How You Will Be Evaluated. And those words are not on this page here. I'm sorry to say, but they're not. How you will be evaluated. And that's a drop down. You got to click on the words read more. And then you might see, I'm always looking at announcement, and I'll say, I wonder what's in here. I'm going to click on read more. It might say nothing. It could have KSA. It could have 7 KSAs. I'll go, oh my gosh, look at this, 7 KSAs. Or it might have this beautiful list of competencies, and I'll say, oh my gosh, these are your keywords right here. Boom. You never know. So how you be evaluated is this golden little paragraph that you never know what's in it. We always know the specialized experience paragraph is in all the announcement. That one I can say. But how you be evaluated is also really good to look at. And so there's some KSAs there. And what I can say about the KSAs is that if you can give an example to demonstrate each knowledge, skill, and ability that's there, that is the best way to handle KSAs. Or you can make a hat out of it. You can make an all-cap heading. But boy, oh boy, you better pay attention to those KSAs. And if you do get to be interviewed, probably the interview questions are going to be based on the KSAs. So just, you want to practice those KSAs. Tell me about a time when you had to develop emergency management operations. What was the situation? What did you do? And then you go into an emergency management operations story. Or you might not get hired. You better do it. Okay, then keyword search. Okay, now the assessment questionnaire. I'm on page 40 of the book. And this is still about the emergency management specialist position. Now, a lot of people think that they have to match the words to every single question in the questionnaire. You do not. If you follow my method of matching the specialized experience, which is a paragraph that is usually 6 sentences long, if you match your resume to that section, you are probably going to hit the questionnaire just fine. People tell me I spend hours matching my resume to every question in the questionnaire. That is crazy. That takes so long to do, and then sometimes they might have 20 questions. That'll make your resume longer. So I just think the best thing to do is match a specialized experience and the KSAs if they're in there. I always look at the questionnaire. Yesterday I taught a class of 40 plus down in DC, and I pulled up an announcement for the class just to look at. And I said, this looks like a good announcement. This is a program analyst. It's the housing department. Now let's go to the questionnaire and see how many questions are specific to housing. Because a lot of times the questions are not specific to the field of work. And that means it's open to other people. So I looked at the questions kind of quickly to count how many had the word housing in it. 5 out of 20 had the word housing. So you don't have a housing background, I'd say not. But if I were to look at the questionnaire and they were all generic, I'd say, yeah, you could do E to all of them, but I don't want you to have to lie on 5 of them. That's ridiculous. So you could exaggerate on one. You know, if there was one question on housing, you could just pretend like you manage your own house and, you know, go for it. But 5 of them, you know, you can wing it a little bit. But I don't wing it on 5 questions. That's, you know, you're not going to match. Your resume probably doesn't even have the word housing in it. So, of course, you're not going to get best qualified. So the challenge with the questionnaire, everybody tells me, is that some of the questionnaire questions are very specific for things that you don't know about. But a lot of the questions are great. They're easy for you to answer. So you don't really know what to do. And the thing about the questionnaire, and you can tell me whether you know this or not, is that the questionnaire is a test. You are self-assessing your skills at the highest level. And usually the answers are A through E. E is the highest level. That's where you are either an expert or a supervisor, or you are the person who would advise others and help others with this process. So you could be the highest level 3 ways: supervisor, expert, or you help other people. So I'm on page 41 in the book here. So have any of you had any challenges with the questionnaire? Anybody want to tell me something?
I was one of those people who previously, before you said something, there's actually a job announcement out now that I plan to apply for, and my first thought was I need to go through and update my resume and make my resume match the questionnaire. So I'm glad I don't have to do that.
Well, you do need to match the announcement.
Oh, well, yeah, but not the questions.
Not every single question.
Yeah.
The questionnaire, is, believe it or not, is really covered by the specialized experience, and if there are KSAs in the announcement. Does your announcement have KSAs in it or not?
I don't think so. I need to go back and double
Look
check.
at it again.
Yeah,
look under that section, how you be evaluated, because on the top screen, you don't see it. If you don't click read more, you don't see it. That's a really tricky little thing. They should not do that. They should not. I want to tell you something else right now before I forget. There's a problem with USA Jobs. And it is that if you do submit your resume with the builder, you put your resume in the builder, and you apply to CMS with the builder, there's a problem with that resume. That resume is going to be 7.5 type when it goes to the manager. That is small. Average type font that a person would want to use is 11 or 12 point type for most announcements. 7.5 is really small. And that's if you use a builder. So here's what you do. Build your resume in the builder, and then print preview it, copy it all out, put it into a Word file, and upload. Make it 11 point type, and fix the margins and the formatting, and don't submit with the builder. So I called OPM, I called USA Jobs, the guy in charge, and I said this. I said, you know, you have a problem with your resumes being produced and being sent to managers that are 7.5 type, and it's really small. And it's hard. I mean, I can't read it. I won't. Managers can't read it. I said, can you get your programmers to fix that so that the resumes can be printed at 11 point type instead of 7.5? Guess what he said?
No.
He said, it's not our fault. He seriously said, it's not our fault. Here's what he said. We created the form. We created the builder. We collect the data. But we don't have anything to do with printing it out. It's all the contractors that do the printouts of resumes and the documents and the questionnaire. We got 30 contractors. And then he said, do you want me to tell all 30 contractors to fix this? I said, yeah, that'd be good. Yeah. So in case they don't fix it, which probably they won't, don't submit with the builder unless you're applying for a job at NASA. NASA only accepts resumes. Oh, guess what? TSOs, Transportation Security Officers, all using the builder now. I just found that out yesterday. I didn't know that. There's like 20 jobs for TSOs right now, and all these cities and states everywhere, all builder. There's poor managers. I don't think they even know. They just did that. So don't use the builder. Use the builder to build your resume, to get it right. Copy it out. And then also another tip with a builder is that if education is required for your job, like if you have a job where education is mandatory, with the builder, if the builder has education down at the end, copy it and move it up. If you apply for a job that requires a degree, I want education at the top. So the manager doesn't have to look for it at the end of 7 pages or whatever you might submit. So with the builder, just flip it around, copy education, and you might copy certifications and training out too, if it's relevant for the job you're applying for, and move it up onto page 1. So builder tip.
So just question, any certifications you think may or may not be relevant to the position, or may not be relevant to the position, do not.
If it's relevant to the position, definitely put it on page 1, because managers and HR are looking for education and certification that's relevant, move it up. Yeah.
So do you suggest that even though there may be some certifications you have that may not be specific to the announcement, but may be relevant to the work, you still add that to like the end?
I probably put all certifications up top then in that case. And so let me just go to the book. I'll tell you what page to look at. I have a sample for you to look at. I'm not going to put it on the screen. Well, I can put it on the screen. Hold on. Let me tell you the page. Page 183. Look in the book. I'll put it on the screen right now. This is a very important sample, 183. This is a mid-career IT specialist person. Check this out. Page 1 is his profile, and he is a certified senior information security services specialist. Then we have his certifications next. Then we got all the computer skills next. Then we've got his education, all on page 1. So this is for highly technical jobs where people need to emphasize their education, certification, and IT stuff. And then scrolling down, check out the related employment history is the same I've been teaching you all. Outline format, all cap keywords, came out of specialized experience. And then we have selected accomplishments. IT people and everybody are just terrible about describing specific projects in their resumes. And you have to describe what you've done in your projects and separate them out. So this one is for technical, for IT. This works really well for engineers, IT, cyber, intel, GIS, anything that's very technical, or even health insurance specialist. Health insurance specialist jobs are very technical. You've got a lot of software, data, studies, research that you might use in your job, and you'll do better getting referred if you have all your technical skills at the top. So that would work for an HIS position as well. So what do you think of that, putting all the technical skills on page 1 so it's easy for managers to find it?
I like that.
Yeah, it really helps a lot. Okay, I'll go back up to where we were, page 46. So this book is really good. You have to take your time and look through it when I'm done. But it's good for me to be here to give you an orientation of what's in the book. Okay, the next section is super important when I said the word accomplishments already about 20 times today. And here we have, this book has 20 samples of accomplishments in the book. So we've got a lot of nice samples in here. And, okay, accomplishments are very important, very important. Okay, here's some samples, starting right here on page 47. Senior leadership selected me to lead an organizational-wide cybersecurity awareness campaign because of my expertise in this area. This had never been done before and came at a crucial time in the organization. I hand-selected, did you see me use the word I? Everybody? I did this, not the team. I did it. I hand-selected a team of 5 SMEs. Next, I coordinated with the managers. I leveraged technology. When you're writing your accomplishments, you want to use the word I to show that it was you that did this work. And this is really kind of unheard of in the world of resume writing. And people will raise their hand and say, is it okay to use the word I? Is it okay? I've been told not to do that. Well, for the duties, we don't use the I. We use action verbs. But in the accomplishments, this is like short little KSAs, like in the old world with government, they had KSAs, knowledge, skills, and abilities, 1 page for each. They were using personal pronoun I. SES, ECQs for senior level positions, they're using I. Because, well, we have to force them to use I. They'll stand up and tell me a story. 5 minutes talk, they won't say the word I one time. And then I'll say, wait, I make them say it. Shocking. So anyway, use the word I. Okay, here's some more accomplishments. In our classes, we have people write an accomplishment. We won't do that today. Now, here's the CCAR format. So you've probably never heard of the word CCAR. This is a government accomplishment writing formula. I'm on page 49. You want to tell the context of the story, the challenge of the story, the actions, and the results. That's a storytelling formula for writing an accomplishment. So your story over here of doing your audits of terminations could become a CCAR story. You could say, at this particular city and state, we discovered there were possible problems with terminations being cleared. The challenge was that the staff was not interested in our audit or helpful or something, some challenge, you know. And then actions, 1, 2, 3, and the results. That would be a CCAR. For an interesting story, not an average one. It has to be interesting. I have a CCAR builder on my website that I can send a link to someone and you can send it out to everybody, okay? Yeah. Yolanda? I have a CCAR builder on my website. It's a tool for writing accomplishments. It's free. You don't have to sign up for it. You just use it. And as soon as you fill out the context, challenge, action, results, you hit submit and it comes to you in your email. It's fabulous. So you send it to everybody. Okay, CCAR stories. So here are some samples of accomplishments. We have one here for an executive assistant. Listen to this one. This lady was at the Patent and Trademark Office, and she said, I launched a comprehensive reorganization to the Executive Director's Library, which had fallen into a state of disarray and disorganization. She could have used I here. Proactively envisioned and instituted an entirely new naming and filing system for library binders and coordinated with junior staff to implement my vision. The way she described it was a great big room with papers all the way around the room. Hysterical. So this is an administrative assistant story. Then we have a public affairs story and a nurse story, an emergency planning story. And here's one for a pilot. I love this story. This is one that I interviewed an American Airlines pilot trying to get a job at FAA as inspector. After they retire, they all want to go to FAA. And he's been trying for 5 years to get in at FAA. FAA requires KSAs, 8 of them, 5,000 characters each, and a 5-page resume. Well, he had been submitting a 1-page resume with just his hours of his planes he's been flying. Didn't read the directions. So he finally hired Resume Place and us to help him. And I said, we got to write stories about each one of these KSAs. And here's one, risk management. Now, come on. You've been flying planes with 200 people in it. Wasn't there ever a time where you had to make a decision on a risk and do something important, interesting? Yeah? He said, oh, yeah. There was that time. We were flying out of Paris, and the volcano eruption occurred in Iceland, which shut down the entire European airspace for 6 days. And I took the initiative to analyze the options, and he flew to Seattle and met with the Boeing engineers that built his plane and designed it. And he said, can we fly in this? Can we fly in this volcanic ash safely? And the engineers said, yes, you can fly as long as you don't go up and down. You can go straight. You can do it. And so he said here, they did a historical analysis of engine shutdowns, and he created the procedure, and he and the Boeing person went to met with the president of American Airlines, and he didn't add this here, but American Airlines flew out of Paris during the volcanic ash, and they flew 15,000 flights because of that guy. He was hired so fast. So fast.
That's impressive.
Amazing. And it's all true. Whenever I tell that story at FAA or anywhere, like Milden Hall, they're right there. They remember it like it was yesterday. They go, yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Wow. Yeah, that's true. So it's a storytelling that can make a difference for your resume. And so read these when you get a chance to read these stories. And you will get inspired to tell some stories in your resume. And then you'll think of a few. I like to see 2 to 5 stories in a 5-page resume. And the stories could be 7 sentences long. I don't want a one-line story ever, because I want to know what happened, what the challenge was, what the result was. We can write a 5-page resume here. Private sector is 2 pages. Okay, private sector, you can write it in 1 line if you want, fine. But for federal, HR managers need to know a little bit more about what your involvement was with the accomplishment. So there's more samples here you can read. And they're all really good. Here's one for an undergraduate student. We always recommend students add stories about their projects and papers, like their capstone projects. Their last year, they have a whole year. I went to Virginia Polytechnic Institute, VPI, down in Richmond, and I had 120 engineering students out there listening to me. And I said, so how do you put your capstone project on your resumes? Do you write it up like, a little job about the project and your thesis and your materials and how you work with the team and did briefings and recommendations? And they said, oh, we don't add it to our resume. I said, what? Are you kidding? They were shocked. They just went, what a miss, right? A capstone's real experience, 10 hours a week or 15 hours a week for a whole year. And they win awards. They do presentations to real companies. These are real projects. They're not just like make-believe at the table. So it was really good. So capstone projects and school projects that you work on with teams can go right into the resume, just like it's right here on page 53, undergraduate student engineering. I've got 3 samples for you right there. He even described how he studied the dynamics of a rotating baseball. They were throwing him into a trash can across the room. He wrote it up. It's right there. Okay, there's one for a vocational nurse and a clerk. We put all kinds of stuff there. And then there's a blank page for writing CCARs. Okay, next one is add core competencies. So also in the announcement under how you be evaluated, a lot of times they have core competencies. And I'll just show you some samples. I'll tell you the page. Wait a minute. Oh, here they are, right here. So agencies pick up some of these core competencies to put in that section. Now, I put something in this book that probably none of you are interested in, but I want to show it to you anyway. So here's IT competencies. If you're applying for an IT job, if you don't include attention to detail, customer services, oral communications, and problem solving in your resume, most likely you will not be best qualified or referred. These are mandatory because IT people talk to customers a lot and they do problem solving a lot. And they have to be covered. They're mandatory. Program analysts, there you go. Analytical thinking, leadership, project management, those are really good. I'm on page 60 in the book. Okay, then I just want to show you. I included the FBI core competencies in here. The FBI has a different resume than anywhere else on the whole world of the planet. And these are the FBI competencies that you would have to cover if you wanted to be a special agent. They are hiring accountants and linguists and military and law enforcement, police officers, business owners, everybody. They're trying to hire special agents from everywhere. So this is a very creative resume format, and you have to tell a story about each one of these competencies in your FBI special agent resume. And here is a sample on page 65. This is nowhere on earth, not on the internet, not on the FBI website, nowhere. Anybody you know who wants to be an FBI special agent has to get this book and look at this sample. This guy is hired. I love the sample because him and his wife started a little business, a little cleaning business for houses and people and businesses, and they hired people to do the cleaning. And their stories are about managing this always pure cleaning company that provides high-quality home cleaning services in downtown Phoenix, and it employs 18 cleaning technicians. Whoa, if you could go from running a tiny little business of cleaning homes to FBI special agent, like, wow, okay? You have to have a degree in anything. You have to have that. But if you have a degree, one of his stories, after a recent office relocation for collaboration, I was informed by my neighbor that none of my employees can drive down that street. Well, he's got 18 employees who got cars, and they got to pick up cleaning solutions and so forth. Well, he negotiated with the neighbor to calm down and let us use the driveway. Story of collaboration, driving down the street. And then you have to read this resume later. These are fascinating. These are real stories of flexibility and adaptability and leadership, initiative, We're very good at this resume format. We're very good at coaching people to write stories. That's what's good about it. You have to have a story for each one of these. This resume doesn't have duties in it at all. There's no duties and responsibilities. There's only the competency stories. This is a competency resume. This is a career change resume. So anyway, it's just interesting. So if you want to read more stories, this resume is filled with 8 stories right here. It's fascinating. Okay, writing a work history experience, strategy number 6. I'm on page 69. And here we go. The work history section is the most important part of the federal resume. And you're going to include your job title, street address, month and year, hours per week. And you need to include the specifics. Be concise. Can the hiring manager see my credentials in 10 to 15 seconds? They sure can if you use the outline format. If you use a big block of the bullets, you won't. Outline format is 10 to 15 minute review. They don't have to read it all. They just see the words, and they see that you've been in the job 1 year and that you're at the next lower grade level, so it's a very fast read. How far back should you go? 10 years. Each job block should be different. Your current job block, your highest level, should be the longest. Let's say your job that you have now is not as impressive as the job you had before. Job 2 might be more impressive, so you would need to make job 2 longer and job 1 shorter because you're trying to emphasize job 2. That's how you do it. 5 pages is what I recommend. Citizens and Immigration Service does say that your resume has to be 5 pages. In the announcement, it says it. And also, NASA has a 32,000 character limit in the builder. So those 2 agencies specifically say how long it should be. I'm looking at page 74 in the book. SES resumes are 5 pages. So these, this chapter, this section in here talks about how to write your resume. And in this case here, who is going to read your resume, it says on page 76. Well, the first person to read your resume is a human resources specialist, a generalist, who might not be a public health advisor or, you know, a health insurance specialist or analyst or budget analyst. They are an HR person. They're reading your resume to determine if you're best qualified after the questionnaire, and then they decide who is referred. So that's why the resume has to use those words in the announcement so that the resume matches. And then the next reader is a manager. Now, a lot of people, a lot of current federal employees write to us for help at Resume Place because they get referred. Frequently, they get referred. But they don't get invitations to interviews. So I look at the resume and see how boring it is, which it is. You know, sure, they've got 1 year specialized experience at next grade level, but all they do is go to work. No results, nothing interesting, no projects, no results. Just, you know, you're not going to get an interview because you have to be outstanding. There is so much competition for positions that if you don't go the extra mile, now let's say your job is really routine. It's just really routine. Well, then you got to figure it out. You really have to figure out how you can get something on your resume. Ask for a detail or ask your supervisor for a special project to work on so that you can get something on your resume that's a little bit unique and outstanding so that you can add something else to your resume. Some jobs are very general and don't have a lot of challenge. You got to go find it. If you want to get a promotion, if you want to get unstuck, let's say you're a 9 or 11, you've been it for a lot of years, you got to pull out the stops and add something to the resume that stands out so that you can get promoted. Okay, do your research. Now this here on page 77 is a basic. This is a screenshot of the OPM classification and standards. This is very good for you to look at. So whatever your job is, if you're a 341 program analyst, you should really read this and see what the official description says, just so that your resume matches the official description. So you could refer to this. Very helpful for people who are first time in the government. Y'all are in the government, but you should read up on what the official description is for your job, just to be familiar with it. Most people don't know about it. Now, let me show you something here. Probably nobody in this room knows about this. This is called the factor evaluation system. This is an OPM thing. This is classification. It's a little technical, but let me show you something. Resumes are reviewed based on matching the specialized experience, but they also want to know, factor one here, I'm on page 78, knowledge required by the position. So, knowledge required to work here at CMS is probably some legislation, right? What's the big law legislation that you have to know to work here at CMS? Obamacare? That's one, right?
Medicare Act,
What is it?
the Medicare Act.
The Medicare Act, right? Do you look at the Medicare Act in your job?
No, ma'am,
Why not?
because I don't deal directly with Medicare. I handle the accessibility of external communications for beneficiaries.
Okay, so what laws and acts do you look at? Accessibility law,
Section 504
right?
of the Rehab Act.
And you look at that one sometimes, or you know it by heart.
Sporadically, I look at it.
Well, you should put that on your resume,
Okay,
that you're familiar with whatever that was.
yeah,
What was it again?
Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act.
Okay, so that's knowledge required for the position, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is. It's knowledge required for the position. So knowledge that you have that's required for you to know regulations, which CMS got a lot of regulations that you do, maybe you don't look at it every day, but still, you have knowledge that's required. Real. Okay, then supervisory controls, I'm looking at page 78. That goes to, do you work independently? Do you supervise others? What is your supervisory control? Then guidelines. What guidelines do you follow in doing your job? So you look at ADA, right? Americans with Disabilities Act?
No, because the federal government is only governed by the Rehabilitation Act.
Oh, really? Rehabilitation Act supersedes ADA?
They're rolled in, like, there's some similarities between the two, but when it comes to federal agencies, we're,
The Rehab Act is really the
Yep.
one you look at.
Yep.
Well, any guideline or that you follow in doing your job, what guidelines do you follow in your job, Yolanda?
MD 715, MD 110, Executive Order 13583.
There you go. Great. Put those in your resume.
Okay,
The full names of them though.
okay.
Yeah, because that shows you have knowledge of laws and regulations to do your job. You'll get some extra points for your resume because you have the guidelines that you follow in your job. And anybody in the government follows some sort of guidelines. Most never anybody puts it in unless they know about this. Okay, then the complexity. Okay, that's a piece of cake because the complexity is demonstrated by your accomplishments. Because you're talking about the complexity of certain situations that you're resolving. So you're going to cover that. Then scope and effect. That's that beginning paragraph where you describe your organization at CMS, that you are working with beneficiaries or you're working with states and cities with Medicaid. That's what your division is. That's the scope and effect right there. And then personal contacts. That is customer services. Who do you talk to? Who do you work with? Beneficiaries, internal stakeholders, states, counties, clinics, medical doctors. Who do you talk to in your work? And believe it or not, when you go back and look at your resume, you might see that you don't even have included in there your customers because you forget that's what you do all day long. So you do need to add your personal contacts, which is customers and stakeholders. Purpose of contacts, that goes to customer services also. You're responding to questions, inquiries, regulations, whatever. Then physical demands, you can add that if you have physical demands, which you may not, And then work environment, which you would cover in the scope. Now, the reason that it's important to know about this, let's look down here on page 79. Look at this. Here's the score. So if you're going for a GS-12, you could get 2755 score, or you could get 3150. Now, they're not all scoring resumes anymore. This is for classification, but this is just good for writing the top level resume. I included this because my number one HR mentor, her name is Lagaya Fernandez. She worked for Merit Systems Protection Board her whole career. And I asked Lagaya one time, I said, Lagaya, how can a person get a higher score on their resume? And she said, they need to look at the FES. They need to get higher points on their resume. And I said, oh yeah, right. This is in the classification standard. It's not in every single classification. I don't think it's in the 341. It's not in the program analyst, but it is in public affairs. But you get the idea. The idea is add knowledge required, guidelines followed, complexity, accomplishments, and you will get a better score. So you don't have to follow this to the letter. Just know that if you make your resume more complex and more complete, you will get a better score. That's the point of this. And then here's a description of the criteria. You can read this more when you have a time, page 80. And then analyzing your experience. So I've got a little bit more on the FES here. Okay, then we have some more samples here. Here's a before, which is a horrible one on page 82. It's a big blob of words. It's bad. And you don't want your resume to look like this one on 80. And then the after is on 82, on 83. And we have it broken out. We have complexity, scope, and effect. We have the guidelines, contacts and work environment, knowledge required. This is beautiful. Yep. And then we have accomplishments. There they are. That's a really good sample, by the way. 83 and 84. That's a good one. This one hits the FES. It hits the outline format. It hits the keywords. Hits the accomplishments. 83, 84. Good one. Okay. Now, edit carefully. I just want to show you one thing here. Then I have to talk about Schedule A. Okay. I have to show you one thing. Right here. Wait a minute. Wait. Words to avoid. Here we are. This is page 87. These are words that I don't want you to use in your resume, okay? I don't want you to say responsible for duties include helped with, assisted with, participate in, because those words mean you didn't do anything. You're just sitting there. If you helped with, you helped somebody else do something. What did you do? So this page is 87. Get rid of these words because they're passive voice. They're really not helpful. If you get rid of all your passive voice words in your resume, you might look like you're qualified for a higher grade level immediately. There's a sample of a before and after in here too, right here on page 89. Here's a passive voice. It starts out, serve as a staff action officer responsible for overseeing, managing a modernization. Other duties include coordinating, blah, blah, bunch of words. Okay, the after, outline format, staff action officer, recommend policy, justify funding, advisor and third tier technical assistant. Boom. So much more direct and impressive. So this little chapter is really good. Words to avoid. Oh, beware of acronyms, oh brother, yeah. Acronyms they can be bad. If you apply for a job outside of CMS, you better for sure spell everything out because they won't understand. And you shouldn't write with too many acronyms. And there's the I lessons. If you want to read more about I, Rules 91, page 91. Okay, here we go.
I have a question.
Yes.
So on page 88, can you just briefly explain how you would use this section, powerful words? Is there like a specific time you would use this? Is that during where you're telling a story, or is that like part of
It's
your
more the duties.
More of the
It's
duties?
The duties, yeah.
Okay,
Because this before paragraph is all about the duties.
okay.
And that's where people say help with, assisted with, serve as, other duties include. The accomplishments need to be written with the I phrases, personnel, the personal pronoun.
Okay.
So this is where you'll find most of these words is in duties.
Okay,
And the HR people write the position descriptions and the announcements using passive voice, and comment will be responsible for it. Ignore that. Don't use their style of writing. You need to do active voice. If there are any classes that you could take at CMS here or anywhere in active voice writing or plain language writing, take the class. Because the government has been using passive voice, this bureaucratic writing style forever, and it's not tight, it's not impressive, it's not direct.
And what class is that?
Active voice writing, we call plain language writing. That's a popular one, plain language writing. You can even Google plain language writing. and see if anybody's teaching it.
Our Learning Institute has a plain writing class.
Oh, and everybody should sign up.
That's part of it.
Take it. Because you will use it in writing your emails, in writing your briefings, in writing your summaries, and writing whatever. You'll use plain language writing everywhere, not just your resume. Because it's a new, better, more direct, more efficient writing style to communicate in a shorter way. And heaven knows CMS needs that, communicating with beneficiaries, right? You want to be really direct and short and to the point, and that's what you do with plain language and active voice writing. So, thanks for asking that. We only have 15 minutes, and let me just show you really quickly the last two steps, last two strategies. Hold on. Strategy 8, look at formatting and document design. I have a couple of samples in here of formatting that are good. Here's one that is nice. I'm on page 96. We have a little summary at the top. You can add a little summary on your resume. You don't want to make it really long, but just something short. And then here's the experience right here. The mission of NAVSUP is to provide supply service and quality of life support for Navy and joint warfighters. And this one has accomplishments blended in. So that's a nice format. And here's another good sample. Oh, this sample, I have to tell you about this one. This is a military spouse. This is a new idea that I have. So here she is. She got a job as a GS5. She did. I put her computer skills first because she has a lot of computer skills. And then look at this. I have a job block here called Work Experience, Military Spouse, PCS History. I'm recommending that spouses self-identify that they're a spouse and add that they're a spouse right here. Extensive experience, military family life, relocations, family management at all of these locations. And she does her job as a military spouse 30 to 32 hours per week. This is a new idea for military spouses. If you know any spouses, remember this page, 98. And it's new. I have a new book for spouses too. It's called The Stars Are Lined Up for Military Spouses. Spouses have been hiding that they're a spouse forever because they are, going to move in 3 or 4 years, and so they don't want anybody to know they're a spouse, but their unemployment rate is 28%. It's not working for them. They need to start self-identifying that they're a spouse, and they have a lot of skills and a lot of knowledge of the U.S. military and put it in their resume. So then her next job is a volunteer job. Check this out. She's got his entire job block for the volunteer job, and she got stationed at Fort Gordon. And here she is, hours, 30 to 32 hours a week, volunteer. If you want to get credit for a volunteer job, you make it a job block. You can't put it at the end under additional information that says, you're counselor or mentor for Boys and Girls Club. You have to make it a job block if you want to use it. So if you want to get credit for mentoring and coaching and recruiting volunteers, you have to make it a job block. Like this is a job block right here. So when she went to Fort Gordon, she took volunteer job just to have something to do. And her job before at Fort Meade, she was a GS4 for 5 whole years. Look at all the awards she got. She's like the best employee of all of Fort Meade as a GS4. She got a GS5 social science job at Fort Gordon. And she wrote me an email and she said, Catherine, I got a GS5, but it feels like a GS13. I'm so happy. But I created this resume emphasizing how good she was with her computer skills. I put the PCS history in there. I emphasized her honors and awards, and she got hired. It was fast, too. Like, a couple months, really fast. So I love that resume. Now, here's an ugly resume. This is one of the builder resumes, the 7.5 type. Impossible to read. When I teach my classes everywhere, wherever I go, somebody in the room will say, they'll do this. Yeah, I know. Look at my resume. They hold one up right in front of everybody. And I say, yeah, look at that. You don't want a manager to have to read that resume. The type font is so small. So don't do that. Don't do the builder. Okay. This is another bad sample because it's private sector. It's too short. Really skimpy. You won't get hired. Okay, so I have to go to my next topic. So you have to look at the book, the rest of it on your own. The next part in the book is career change. You want to look at that chapter if you want to change your career. The next part in the book are 4 stories of people who changed their careers, and then the IT is the last part. So here we go. I just want to tell you my important tips for using Schedule A. Right here. I coach a lot of people with Schedule A, and I have a really good technique for using Schedule A. So that screen came from USA Jobs. So Schedule A is a different hiring authority than competitive hiring with USA Jobs. Schedule A is sending a letter to the Selected Placement Program Coordinator with your Schedule A letter and a cover letter and your resume and saying, I want to apply for these jobs and thank you for your help. Because agencies have Selected Placement Program Coordinators and CMS has one. And, you know, anybody know the name of the Selected Placement person here? I'll find it for you. You send it to everybody, all right?
I don't think we have one
Yeah,
anymore.
oh, you must.
No, we
No,
don't.
you must.
No,
Yeah.
it's my understanding that we actually don't.
We've been trying to figure it out for, yeah.
I'll help you out.
Yeah.
I'll help you out. There's one at Social Security Administration.
Actually, I don't think there is. I think each specialist that is on the vacancy announcement, you can send your Schedule A information directly to that person. Like every
Really?
CMS vacancy has.
Yeah.
like
At
a
CMS,
contact.
though, not anywhere else.
Right.
Other agencies, that's hard to believe. You used to have a Selected Placement Program Coordinator because I know that person. Maybe they're not here now. Maybe it's up in the air right now. We'll find out. Okay, so anyway, many agencies have a Selected Placement Program Coordinator that will receive your resume and will see if they can help you find a job. Yes.
What page are
This is not in the
It's
book.
not in the book.
Okay.
This is just a PowerPoint. You can send it to everybody.
They should already receive it.
Oh.
Yeah.
It was an email, yes.
Yep.
It's email,
Okay, so
if not.
this little widget of a person in a wheelchair shows you these jobs that you can apply for as a person with a disability. It's on USA Jobs. But the way I like to explain it, I'll just tell you, is you should find a job on USA Jobs and apply for it. Just a regular way, the questionnaire, everything. But then, after you apply for it, you need to try to find the name of the Selected Placement Program Coordinator. Like for Social Security Administration, let's say, there is a person who has an email and a phone number, and you would find that person's email and you would write them a letter. And you would say, I just applied for the job of health insurance specialist at Social Security Administration, GS9, announcement 12345. I would like to send you my resume as well so that you could consider me under Schedule A. Thank you so much for your consideration. You do a double. I call it a double. You apply on USA Jobs a regular old way, and then find that person, and you write them a letter and identify yourself as a person with Schedule A. Because they keep resumes like in a folder in a database, and when somebody wants to hire a certain kind of person, you could get a call. It works. It does work. Now, getting responses from the Selected Placement Program Coordinators is not easy because I guess they're busy and they don't always write back. But you should write again and say, did you get my resume? I'm interested in this job. They should write to you because they're real people. Have any of you ever seen what the Selected Placement Coordinator list looks like on OPM's website?
Yes.
You have.
if I'm story?
Yeah,
If
go
I
ahead.
could take a minute. I made the cert list, and they told me that I'd made that particular Schedule A list.
Okay, good.
And it was good for a year.
Okay,
So when I saw a position, I called them up, and they told me, well, that doesn't exist anymore. So that goes back to the statements we were, or the comments we were making, that there is no one. And I was later told that they did away with it.
I just keep trying. That's all I can say.
I don't, maybe it came back, I don't know.
What agency was that?
Here,
Oh, here, well, I guess that might be it, that they don't have identified a person. But I'll look for you. If we can find the name of a person or find out the method, if it is to send the Schedule A letter to the person who's on the announcement, I'd like to know that because I coach people all the time on Schedule A, so I'll find that out. All I gotta do is call somebody on the announcement and say, are you the person who would receive the Schedule A letters as well?
Mhm.
See what they say. I don't know what they'll say.
And
Because I
sometimes
thought,
they-
yeah, it's like the Lazy Program person. Okay, we'll find out. Okay, so look, there's a widget. I'm looking at the PowerPoint here. you can apply for these jobs, individuals with disabilities. But, you know, you can apply for jobs that are competitive as well. You don't have to just apply to these widget jobs. You can apply to competitive jobs as well. So don't make your list limited to that one. I like it that they put that there, though. It's nice. So you have to have a Schedule A letter. You can have it from your doctor, psychiatrist, your voc rehab. I'm sure everybody knows how to do that. A lot of people, first time in, don't know that they need this real letter. The real letter, be sure it doesn't say exactly what's wrong with you. It needs to be really generic and plain. And there it is right there. It needs to say basically not much. So don't send, you know, any more details than that. It needs to be on the letterhead of the doctor or the hospital or whatever and signed by them, and that's it. Just there. This came right off the OPM website. All I did was search for Schedule A letter OPM, and there it is, right there. Schedule A letter is also good for the 30% or more disabled veterans because they're also disabled, but they can use their SF-15 from the VA, their VA letter, in lieu of the Schedule A letter. And then documentation you need to show, this is for veterans here. Look, this is a screenshot of what it looks like on the OPM website. There's a directory of selective placement program coordinators on the OPM website, and you can search by state. You do a little drop down there for the state of Maryland, and they would come up. Or over here, I wish I was live right now, and I would look up CMS this right this second and see if there's a name on there.
Excuse
I do it right now.
Hang on, somebody's trying.
Yes.
I have a question.
Okay.
Back to the other page that you just left for the veterans with disability, the 30% or more.
Uh-huh.
Regardless of what the disability is, all I would need is a letter from VA stating that I'm 30% or more, and that is sufficient?
Yep, that's it. Yep. Just find that VA letter.
Okay, I didn't realize that. Well, thank
Schedule
you.
A letter. That's right. That's easy. And it won't, your letter won't even say what percentage you are. It'll just say you're 30% or more. And then on your resume, don't list that you're 100% or 60% disabled. Just say 30% or more disabled. That's the name of the program. 30% or more disabled. That's it. No more. Okay. So there's the screen. All you got to do is you could Google OPM, Selected Placement Program Coordinators. This page will come up here. And then you can go down and search by agency. All agencies, do that drop down to HHS, and then find CMS and see what's there, and then write them a letter. I think somebody's name is there, actually. There's real people. They're real people. I know lots of them. So if you want to leave here and go to Social Security Administration, get that name out of there. I think the name is Peterson, not sure. But find it, send them a letter with your Schedule A letter and your resume. If you're applying for a job that requires a degree, you got to send your transcript too, a copy of it, not an original. But if you're applying for a job that does not require a degree, like health insurance specialist does not require a degree, you don't need to send it. But if it's required, you have to send your cover letter and your Schedule A letter, your resume, and your transcript, if education is required. So this page is really invaluable. And you'll have fun looking at all the names. You'll see who's there for FAA and who's there for Citizens and Immigration, who's listed for FEMA. And just check them out. They're there. They're real people. They're Selected Placement Program Coordinators. Oh, look, I have a screenshot. Oh, there we go. Citizen Immigration is Cindy Smith. And for Human Resources, Tamara Williams. Gary Gaston is with ICE. And Sonia Matthews is with Secret Service. And you can write to these people. I recommend you keep a spreadsheet when you write to these people, like the date, who you wrote to, their email, and what the announcement was that you were applying for, so you can track and follow up on their non-response to you. Sorry.
Excuse me, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
The spreadsheet should say the date you sent the letter, the person you sent the letter to, their email, and the job that you're applying for in that letter. So you can track them. So if you send a letter today to Gary Gaston, he might not write back. But in 5 days, you could write to him again and say, hi, Gary, did you get my resume? And I really want that position. Honest to Pete, you have to write again. So anyway, our time is up. I want to summarize. I'm glad we did that with the Schedule A. My objective in
Excuse
teaching
me
this
for one
class.
second. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I just wanted to chime in. So this is Marla Lazarus. I'm from the Office of Human Capital, and there was some discussion about our process for accepting Schedule A resumes. So if you guys want to take, can I take a minute or two to explain that?
Yes, you can, please.
Sure. So there was some discussion about submitting your resumes to the HR specialist on the vacancy, and that is accurate. So if you are interested in applying through Schedule A for a specific vacancy announcement, that is the process we follow at CMS. So you would submit your resume and Schedule A letter to the HR specialist listed on the vacancy announcement. In addition to that, we also have a non-competitive resume database where we store applications that are made available to every manager in the agency real time. So if you want to be considered for future opportunities, so not for a specific vacancy, but just want managers to have access to your resume if they are looking to fill a position and maybe they don't post, maybe they just go to the database first before posting, you can send your resume and Schedule A letter to CMS Recruitment at cms.hhs.gov. Again, that's CMS Recruitment at cms.hhs.gov. All of that information, both of those ways to apply are on our website, external-facing website, on our careers website as well.
Thank you very much. That was very informative. So everybody, if you go to this website here and you look for CMS, that person is not there. The new way of applying or writing to apply as a Schedule A is to write to that person on the announcement. So thank you. That's really nice of you to speak those words. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Yeah.
Says that the email address is not valid.
Say the email address one more time.
CMS Recruitment at cms.hhs.gov.
Okay, and what's your name?
My name is Marla Lazarus.
Okay, Marla. Thank you very much. We're going to share this information through EEO because this is really valuable for everybody to know and for me too. So I really appreciate it. Thank you. So overall, the objective of this class is to learn how to write a new resume format, outline format, how to find the right keywords to match your resume, and how to add accomplishments that will help you to stand out. And I hope you enjoy the book, and I hope you do everything I teach you today, and I'm glad that I was invited. I know I've talked fast, but thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Yolanda. Thank you. Thank you.
But the email that you mentioned,
Welcome. Good job.
I did.